Welcome to the 18th episode of the Tiny Nimble Podcast. After a long hiatus, we're finally back into the podcasting business. Well, it's not really a business, and more of just two mobile gamer friends talking about mobile games. If you may have missed any of our previous podcasts, check out the podcast list linked in the description below. Nimble Thor and I have a lot to talk about today. Not only will we discuss our favorite games, but we'll also address the huge pink elephant in the room, Diablo Immortal. We also have some thoughts on the new breakout game hosting site known as Netflix, and a bunch of other random mobile game topics. So I hope you'll all enjoy this episode. Do us a favor and leave a like and subscription or rate the podcast depending on where you're listening. Now let's get started as we always do with our righteous recommendations. So over to you, Nimble Thor. What have you been playing this past month?
A lot of games. Thank you, by the way. And can I just say, it's really great to be back again. We said this last time as well, but this time we mean it. There's not gonna be as long of a hiatus before the next episode. One of my favorite games this past, 3 months, or even, I think actually I'm gonna hype it up even more and say that this is one of my favorite games of this last year, or maybe even 2 last years, at least in this genre. Are you excited now? You should be.
That's some hype.
Yeah, that's some hype. It is Hot Lap League, which is a single-player Trackmania-like racing game. So I think really this is the best racing game on mobile, in my opinion. What it means when I say Trackmania-like is that it's all about finishing these tracks as fast as humanly possible to get the world record. So it's really all about making sure you don't make any mistakes at all, right? Like perfecting these tracks. And I think that's part of the reason why I love this one so much. Because I liked Trackmania on PC. It was my favorite racing game on PC. And for some reason, they just have not released an official Trackmania game on mobile. So this is the best we're gonna get. It has loops, it has jumps, everything you'd expect from a Trackmania game, I guess, except for multiplayer. It's a single player game, so I guess that's the biggest downside. But the touch controls are great. It also has controller support. It has 80 tracks right now, and then there are daily and weekly challenges as well to keep things interesting. And you can unlock some different vehicles, but they're just cosmetics because they all have the exact same stats. Because this is it's a competitive arcade-ish game, so it's really all about your skill and becoming good at the game, I guess. No pay to win here. It's a premium game. It costs $4.99 on Android and $7.99 on iOS. And that's all there is to say about this one. Check it out for sure if you like Trackmania. Have you played Trackmania, by the way?
I have not played it. I'm looking at screenshots right now, and the graphics look pretty cool, and all the crazy different tracks look amazing to me. This is something I might actually really want to check out.
Yeah, I just love these arcade racers. I don't know what it is. I can't do very serious, simulation-like racing where you have to actually act as if you're driving a real car.
Yeah,
I just like the arcade, fast-paced.
If there's rain on the track, you have to be careful of the rain.
No thanks.
Yeah, super simulation.
Yeah, just give me a great arcade-ish, fast-paced racing game, and I'll be happy. And I think Hot Lap League is exactly that. And this is one of the whether or not you're going to end up liking it or not, it is arguably one of the highest quality racing games to have released recently that has not been released by one of the big existing studios, like Gameloft, for example. So I think it's worth checking out. But what has been what is your righteous recommendation? What has been one of your favorite games as of late?
So one of my favorite games as of late, and again, we've had a huge hiatus, so I wouldn't say this game is recent. I actually did a video on this game, I want to say maybe 3 months back, but I've been playing it to this day, and that is a game called Punball. So Punball is, remember the old school brick breaker games where you throw the ball and it bounces off the bricks? Yeah, and it busts them and it bounces back. It's very similar to that. It's in portrait mode. You play as a wizard and you shoot out your little wizard powers and it bounces off the walls and it hits the enemies, and then that's a turn, and then the enemies, they drop down, kind of like a Tetris drop down. In the simplest terms, your goal is to just destroy all the enemies to advance to the next stage. You have boss battles, you upgrade your powers, you get special abilities every so often. It's very strategic. I think that's what I like most about it, is the strategy of the game, because you'll have a bunch of enemies on screen at once, and then all of a sudden there's a small little gap. If you can get your little wizard ball through that gap and have it bounce to behind them, and then all of a sudden you have this 1,000,000 combo happening with all these points and flashing stuff on screen. It's very rewarding when you actually beat a boss. It's very fun. It's hard. It's strategic. The monetization isn't so bad. There is some elements where you have to like buy some upgrade material, let's say if you want to upgrade faster. If not, it just becomes more of a grind. But the game is so fun and so rewarding that I really don't mind that grind. I just love just picking it up, playing a few levels, putting it down, coming back a few hours later, you're still on that same stage, and you can just kind of chip away at that enemy or chip away at that boss. If anybody hasn't had a chance to play Punball and you're interested in some sort of like a new age brick breaker, I would definitely give Punball a try.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I also played the game, by the way. Good recommendation. I agree. I think it's also worth mentioning that it's made by Happy, which are the developers of Archero as well.
There you go.
Which is really popular. I don't know if you knew that, but it's made by the same developers, and you'll see like the art style is somewhat similar, and the gameplay, even though the gameplay is different, as you said, this is a brick breaker, but you'll still start to see similarities. I mean, now that you know it's made by the same developer, you'll definitely start noticing it next time you play the game.
Yeah.
I guess that means it also has the energy system monetization, right?
That
so
too,
you can only you can only play so many rounds before you have to wait. I guess it's not the type of game that you sit down and play for hours at a time, but I completely agree. It's a great arcade experience, and I actually really enjoyed it as well, and I also covered it a while back on my channel.
Yeah, it's a great pick up and play game. I mean, like I said, it's still installed on my device, so every once in a while I'm kind of bored, and I'm like, let me play some Punball.
Nice.
All right, moving on, we have some new game announcements we want to talk about. Recent releases, games that just recently came out, some of them already out, and some new announcements. But we're going to start with Disney Mirrorverse. I think that's how you pronounce it, mirror, because you're in a mirror. Okay, so Disney Mirrorverse, it's basically like a Disney RPG battler. I took a look at it. I haven't played it quite yet. It's installed on my device, but it is out now. The graphics look pretty cool. It does look like your traditional mobile RPG mechanics where like you have your characters and then they attack, then you get attacked and you want to upgrade your characters. But I guess the twist on it is the premise where it's an alternate Disney universe. So you'll have characters like Sully from Monsters, Inc. and he's all decked out in like armor and stuff, and you would never see him in armor in the Disney movie.
No.
So like it's a twist on the characters. I guess think of it like Bizarro World or what is it, multiple universe of madness or something crazy like that, and they switch it up. So that seems like a pretty cool aspect. So if you're into any like Disney type games or even RPG mobile games, you might want to take a look at it.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty interesting as well. Same as with you, I have it installed on my phone. I have not had the time to play it yet, but it looks interesting. I am a little bit concerned as to whether or not it'll be able to differentiate itself from, as you said, you pointed it out. It looks and seems like a typical, mobile RPG,
like every other one out there.
Yeah, team-based strategy game. Time will tell, of course. I have seen, I think there's a tendency for mobile games to, if they include a big IP, like Star Wars or Disney, Marvel, things like that, if they include a big IP, sometimes they scale back a little bit on the gameplay and just kind of do what everyone else has already done, but just put on, like, attach this IP to it, and it's gonna sell, because there's gonna be fans who are gonna play it. I'm afraid it's gonna be that, but I am hopeful, not optimistic. I'm hopeful that it will be better than that. But time will tell. I guess we probably will both end up covering it on our channels in the future, and maybe we can do a follow up in the next podcast episode. But one of the other games that is gonna release soon has not released yet, or has it? Let me explain what I mean. Honor of Kings, which is a super popular MOBA in China. It's the most played mobile game, or was the most played mobile game in the world, or at least highest earning mobile game in the world for many years. It has over 100 million daily active players in China, which, I mean, if you just think about that, like 100 million players per day, it's massive, right? So we're getting an international version of that. That's not so strange. That's not so weird. But what is kind of weird is that we already have an international version of the game called Arena of Valor, which some of you might remember. It was, it had some hype when it released. I don't think it's played that much anymore, which I guess is why Honor of Kings is owned by Tencent. So I guess that's why they're now interested in relaunching. But they don't ever mention Arena of Valor. They just say, Honor of Kings is finally coming, to the US. Although we have had a version of it for many years at this point, I think since 2018 or something like that. apparently re-releasing under a new name. It's happening, I think, this year. We'll have to see if they can actually do better this time. Arena of Valor never really succeeded competing against Wild Rift and all the other MOBAs out there. I don't know if you ever played it. Did you play Arena of Valor?
I think I played it when it first came out because it was this big hype that it was out. And I think the reason that hype was there was because, its relation to Honor of Kings, or it basically being Honor of Kings. But I find it very interesting and funny that it's just like, oh, Arena of Valor doesn't exist. Honor of Kings, this is the international version. This is the one. And it's just kind of like, okay, so it's that name recognition, of course, that they're trying to bank on. Like, this is the game that's been so popular, like you said, 100 million daily active users and all this stuff. So it's just interesting that it's a weird, different type of tactic, I guess, to re-release a game under its original name or something along those lines, just to see if it has success. I'm curious on the success it does have, though.
Yeah, I mean, and it is kind of strange that it can be so successful in China and so completely unsuccessful in the Western market, like Europe and USA. And other countries and regions, of course, but the Western markets. It's kind of strange. Of course, we've seen that before. I mean, South Korea has lots of, free-to-play, pay-to-win MMORPGs that never really see much success outside of South Korea, or at least outside of Asia. So it's not like this has never happened before. But the thing about Honor of Kings is, at least as far as I understand, it's not super pay-to-win. It's, like, decently competitive. You can pay for some small advantages, but I think it's sort of in the same vein as Call of Duty Mobile, where you can pay to get some very, very small advantages, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you can grind things as a free player as well, and it's not gonna be what makes the difference. If you're just marginally better, like more skilled than the other player, you'll still win. That's how I understand it, at least. But of course, we'll see if they're gonna continue with that strategy now that they released the updated international version. So that's the game to look out for if you're into MOBAs. I'm definitely going to check it out once it releases. And maybe there's probably going to be some alpha and beta tests as well. You can do some Googling on that if you're interested in getting into those beta testings of the game.
So next game on our list is one that I'm sure everyone has been super excited for. I know I am. It's called Toy Rider All-Star Racing. Of course, you guys have heard of this game, of course. The only reason why I bring up Toy Rider All-Star Racing is basically because it's a go-kart style racer, and I just feel like mobile doesn't get enough go-kart style racers that are actually semi-decent. This one kind of takes like a Hot Wheels look on your cars, so you're driving these little mini cars through kind of like a racetrack that's on a kid's floor or something like that with toys around. And yeah, it's that same old school Mario Kart style where you're just picking up pickups, shooting stuff, battling, getting to the finish line, becoming first place. The graphics look pretty okay. It's nothing to write home about. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a great announcement, but if anybody's interested in like another go-kart racer, just to fill their void of not having one, I guess, I would say give it a try. I mean, I don't think it's anywhere near your recommendation of Hot Lap League, because Hot Lap League looks cool. But hey, why not give it a look, you guys?
I agree. It's always interesting when new go-kart races release, but we have had a game that I think many have heard about, many of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Ni no Kuni Crossworlds. We talked about this game when it first got announced. We talked about it on one of the previous podcast episodes. Now it has released. It was, I would argue, one of the most hyped games of the year. Amazing graphics. People really looked forward to it. The studio involved in it, or like in the IP, are highly appraised. So, they had lots of good things going for them, but then it released, and the biggest, I would say it's probably one of the biggest letdowns of the year, honestly. I mean, the gameplay could have been okay, but everything is automated.
Every single thing. Like to the point of annoyance.
Yeah, I've never seen a game more automated than this one without becoming a straight up idle game. And I would have been fine with that, by the way. I've played a couple of idle MMORPGs.
Yeah.
That can work. That can be nice. But it feels like this one is still trying to be more of a, like, they're trying to make it feel as if it's an action driven, like play manually old school type of MMORPG. but then they made everything auto. You like auto movement, auto combat, auto potion use, auto everything, auto skill use, auto questing even, which is something you don't often see. Like typically you do still have to manually continue the quests, but you have that here as well. And also when not doing quests, you can also just turn on auto combat. So that, I think, for some people was a letdown. For other people, other people might have enjoyed that, to be honest. I mean, there is definitely a market out there for these auto games. But the monetization was the worst part. And if you want to talk about bad monetization, by the way, I think this is far worse than Diablo Immortal, because you won't get far into Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds. Yeah, I said that. Dumb. Because the thing is, you won't really get far into this game at all unless you pay.
Yep.
Whereas, we'll get into Diablo Immortal in just a bit. It's the next upcoming topic, but in Diablo Immortal, at least you can still enjoy the game as a free player, whereas you really won't get far in Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds. And I just checked out its Google Play score just before recording here, and I think it's set at a 2.1.
Oof.
Rate, like average, right?
2.1
or 2.2, based on 103,000 reviews. So,
yeah.
Basically, yeah, that speaks for itself, I guess.
So I played all the other Ni no Kunis, the ones on console. So the first one on console, Ni no Kuni, I think Wrath of the White Witch, is a traditional RPG, like turn-based RPG. The second one is more of an action-based RPG. The second one called Revenant Kingdom or something. The second one is the combat, and the second one is actually more similar to this mobile version. And that's why I was excited of this mobile version, because I played the second one and I loved it. I was like, oh man, action RPG combat. It had some base building mechanics in it. It was a really good game. And then I popped this one on and I'm like, here we go. The graphics. Yep. This is Ni no Kuni. And I was like, awesome, let's go. And then it's autoing and I'm like, all right, how do I turn this auto off? And then I couldn't find a way to turn the auto off. And then it kept going. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. What do I got to do here? Oh, I have this monetization. Oh, wait, what's going on here? And I was so disappointed about what I was experiencing. Like you said, I'm okay with some auto type mechanics in a game. I've grown to accept some of them. I was very harsh on auto mechanics early on in my mobile gaming endeavors. But lately, or with this one especially, I'm just like, whoa, this is just so... I might as well just set the game down and just watch it like I'm watching a TV show and a movie. Yeah. A less exciting TV show or a movie. So sorely disappointed at what was on offer here.
Absolutely. And so many microtransaction packages,
my gosh,
battle
endless.
passes, currencies, so many things. And now they've also, because there's so many people trying to get into the game, they've limited the servers, or at least they're not willing to expand the server capacity. So there's actually a queue to get into the game, which is not unheard of in MMORPGs. But as far as I understand, I didn't check this out, this part I'm about to say now, so take it with a grain of salt. But as far as I understand, you can actually even pay to get preferred access or like guaranteed access.
Wow.
So there's a queue, and then you can pay to get in. If it was a queue, and everyone had to wait, I guess, fair game. I mean, they should increase the server capacity, but for whatever reason, if they can't do that, if it doesn't make sense, okay, I guess. But the fact that you can pay to get in, I mean, they might as well just have made it a premium game at this point.
Well, premium, yeah. And I heard rumors. I don't know if this is true, and I didn't look too much into it because I didn't play the game very long, I'll be honest. I probably played the first couple sections, the first couple boss fights before I was like, this just isn't for me. But I've heard rumors. Isn't there like some sort of NFT stuff going on with it as well? Like you could purchase one-time things that like you own or something along those lines. I heard that, and I was like, wait a minute.
I think there might be. I've heard that as well. But when I played the game, which was when it had just released, I do not think that was implemented yet. At least I couldn't find it in the game.
Yeah, same here.
But I think it got implemented afterwards. That is a whole topic on its own, like NFTs and crypto games. I think we should dive more into that
for
in a separate
podcast. Yeah,
yeah, because I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I think they're going to be somewhat controversial. So I'm a bit afraid of getting into them now, or even talking about them. Or even hinting at what they might be.
Yeah. So stay tuned for further podcasts, everyone.
Yes. But there is another controversial topic we can get into, right? You want to lead this one?
All right, folks. This is going to be the most controversial topic in the Tiny Nimble Podcast since its inception, I don't know, 2 years ago. You've heard both Nimble and I talk about Diablo Immortal for the longest time. It's constant delays, it's announcement, it's controversy, it's alphas, it's betas, it's go lives, it's everything else in between. Diablo Immortal is finally upon us. Both Nimble and I have played it. Both Nimble and I have heard everything that everyone else is talking about it, and we each have our own opinions, and we're going to get into it. We're going to finally talk about, in real time, Diablo Immortal.
I love that. I love that announcer voice and introduction to this. So
it's that important.
It is that important. It is absolutely true what you said. We've both played it. I think if we can just lay the basics down here.
Yeah.
Like, the gameplay... Okay, I'm going to say something. You tell me if you agree. The gameplay is good.
I think the gameplay is great. But
the
yes,
gameplay is great.
I'll go with you. Yes, gameplay is solid.
Yeah, it's solid, right? So it's definitely above average for action RPGs on mobile. Then how far you want to take that. Like, if you want to say it's the best action RPG in terms of the gameplay, that can always be discussed, but it is definitely above average. Okay, so let's try another one. I think these are safe bets because I think you agree, but like production quality, far, far beyond most other games I've ever seen on mobile.
Top tier.
Yeah. Like, this is what a AAA mobile game looks like in terms of the gameplay. We're not getting into the monetization yet, but like the gameplay. Part of what I really liked about it was the whole PvE co-op dungeon thing. Like, it's so easy to invite your friends to play with you in these dungeons.
Yep.
And even if they are a bit stronger than you, like, that's just fun as well, because it means like an easier time for you, and you get some new loot, and you can help each other like level up faster and get new gear faster. All those things I think are great, but of course I think you agree as well. People want to hear us talk about the monetization, I guess, or at least they wanna how do we get into this? I think okay, I'll say something.
Okay.
I think the monetization is not as bad as people make it out to be. But please don't click away.
Oof.
Yeah, please don't click away. Hear me out here. Yes. You can spend... we've both seen those YouTube videos and those articles about people calculating that you can spend like $80,000 or even $100,000 on your character, on one character in this game, if you want to max it out completely, right? If you want to get all the best legendary gems and max out your equipment. And the legendary gems have big advantages. Like, we're not talking small advantages. I saw another calculation of that. Can't remember the exact details, but we're talking like 200% increase in something. Like, it could be some like physical attack or HP or defense. But we're talking big advantages, not like in Call of Duty Mobile, for example, where it's you get very tiny advantages. I think it's pretty bad that you can spend so much on a game without getting everything. Like, the fact that you can spend 10 grand and you don't get everything.
Yeah. That's not good. That's not a great look, or it's not a good look for a game, especially you spend that amount of money and you expect to like, okay, I should be able to at least max out my character. Nobody should be spending that anyway, honestly. I understand there might be some people out there who are tempted, who maybe have the money to burn or spend. And what it comes down to is this: solid gameplay. I had fun with it. Single player campaign. You can get through that single player campaign basically completely free. Co-op dungeons was probably where I had the most fun, which is the rifts where you go in there, and I was just teaming up with random people who, not even friends necessarily, and we were going in there, taking on dungeons, getting loot and all that fun stuff. I guess here's where my perspective comes from when it comes to Diablo Immortal. I've played mobile games for so many years at this point. I mean, before I even started my channel, I used to play mobile games. Now, when I started my channel, we're very in tune with what monetization and mobile game monetization is all about. And if you stay away from it, you can still have fun. If you want to partake in it, I understand that you can also have maybe a little bit more fun. But the huge backlash about, spending all this money and, because it's Diablo, I'm coming from a perspective of, I've played mobile games a long time. This really isn't that bad. And I know that's not the most popular opinion right now, but it's not the most horrible monetization ever. Is it bad? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is it bad? Yes, necessarily. Does it probably look bad on the Diablo name? Sure, I would say so. But I don't think this is a bad game because of it. I just think that it's a game that, of course, how do I explain it? I expected it. There we go.
Yeah.
I
No, I
expected
think
this
that was-
monetization, and the people who didn't expect it, I feel like, how could you not have? And the people who did expect it probably fall in our camp.
I think you put it very well there. It's like the monetization doesn't ruin the gameplay experience for the average free-to-play player.
The casual, yes.
I completely agree as well, but just to be clear, I think it's absolutely fine to choose to not play the game, like almost as a protest, like that you don't want to play the game at all, you don't want to touch it, you don't want to promote it in any way, because you don't like the practice of, you know, them allowing players to be able to spend so much money. Like, it's a matter of, like, how much money should you be allowed to spend? I feel like that's basically what this conversation comes down to, because some games, through their game systems, through their monetization systems, they, in some sense, limit how much you can reasonably spend on the game, even though it's a free-to-play game with, you know, in-app purchases. Some games, like if you spent $1,000, which is still a lot of money, right? Like, I wouldn't ever recommend spending that much money on one game to begin with. I mean, it's up to you, but I wouldn't recommend it. I probably wouldn't do it myself unless it's spent over many years of enjoyment of the game. But even, let's say, you know, even if you spend $1,000 on a game, some games you'll get everything in for that amount. Like, you'll have unlocked everything. You'll have the strongest gear, the strongest character, strongest everything, right? Even if it's a pay-to-win game. But then more and more these recent years, of course, we've seen free-to-play mobile games, especially the big ones, the MMORPGs. We've seen them move into this like whale hunt, right? Like they look for these whales that spend so much money that the game can be free for everyone else. Like, one person spending $50,000 means that, you know, 200,000 people can play for free without ever spending any money.
Basically, yeah.
That's basically the business of these types of games, and the same goes for Diablo Immortal, I guess. Like, their business is not getting people to spend $5 or $10. They don't care about that. It's about getting a few people to spend a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And do I find that to be a, like, borderline, maybe even unethical monetization strategy? Yes. Like, I actually do. But but at the same time, when they then make the gameplay so that you can actually enjoy it as a free player, I find it hard to really hate the gameplay, like hate the game overall, even though I strongly disagree with the monetization tactics being implemented. But at the same time, I want to say that I've seen worse, maybe not in terms of how much you can spend, but where you're more limited as a free player. I've seen way Ni no Kuni, right? Like, Ni no Kuni, way worse in terms of how far you can get as a free player. And that's what I keep coming back to. Like, when I reviewed the game for mini review as well, I gave it a 7. No, how much did I give it? No, not a 7, sorry. I think I gave it a 5 or 4 in monetization out of 10, with 6 being like okay-ish, and then like 8 being above average and good, just for some context here. I gave it a 4 or 5. I didn't give it a 1 or 2, and the reason is this exact point, that as a free player, I constantly ask myself, as a free player, can I enjoy the game? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. So when I did my review for the game, it was like a 7-minute review. And if anybody who watches my channel knows, my impression videos are usually 4 to 5 minutes long at the most. I spent extensive time in Diablo Immortal because I wanted to get to the bottom of what's it like as a free player? What can I accomplish? What can I get done? Where's the fun factor, right? What's the time spent, the rewarding aspect of the game? And it was fairly high. I mean, to be honest, I didn't spend a dime on Diablo Immortal, and I got through most of the campaign, and I was doing these dungeons, these co-op dungeons. I was getting enough gear. I was upgrading. I was doing what I can. Sure, I started to see, like, all right, if I want to upgrade this gear to like max level, I'm probably going to be grinding the heck out of it or spending money. But the thing is one of the aspects I took away from it, the grind is actually fun. There's actually a fun grind here. The gameplay is fun enough to where I can sit here and go through dungeons and play through dungeons. Would it take me 1,000,000 hours to max everything out? Sure, maybe. But I was enjoying my time spent with it. And to me, when it comes to a free-to-play mobile game, that's kind of what matters most. Like, are you enjoying your free time? Do you enjoy it enough to maybe you would want to spend money or whatnot? And I 100% agree with you. Like, the tactics of, you know, this game, and not just Diablo Immortal, but others like it, where, you know, they want to get those whales that just spend all this amount of money and all this stuff is yeah, sure. I don't necessarily agree with that. There is some caveats to that. But in the end, like, I just don't think Diablo Immortal deserves necessarily all the hate that it's getting, you know, all the videos out there that say, oh, I spent 80K and this, and that. And then a part of me is kind of like, dude, why'd you spend 80K on it? I mean, I know you're doing it for a video. I know it's for YouTube, you know, the YouTubers and the streamers, and they want, you know, you get those views and you get those clicks, but it's kind of like, well, you're spending 80K on it. And yeah, I know it's kind of revealing that you're not getting much, but at the same time, the average player, the casual player, or even the player who's going to play this throughout the next few years with added content that's going to be coming out, because they're going to be releasing more content, and that's free content for free players. You know, that average person isn't spending 80K. The average person might buy the battle pass, let's say $5 for a battle pass, so you get extra rewards or whatnot. I can see that. I mean, honestly, battle passes over the years, I've gotten a little bit more lenient on it, because I'm like, all right, you spend this $5 and you get extra rewards. If it's a game you're going to be playing consecutively for months on end, that might be worth the purchase. But when it comes to like all that additional stuff and all that extra stuff, the average player, the average mobile gamer isn't really going to be spending that. So we do have to take these big topic videos or these big topic articles with a grain of salt sometimes, because it's not a full reflection of the fun factor you're having in game. And that's kind of where I come from, honestly.
I hear you. I guess we almost entirely agree on this topic. But I feel like where we start to misunderstand each other, not so much you and me, but maybe me and someone listening right now, is that, like, if you're listening and you don't agree with what we're saying, I think part of where that misunderstanding comes from is that there are two conversations here. One is about the game and your individual, like, personal, subjective enjoyment of the game, or not enjoyment of the game, you know, whatever it may be, but like your experience of the game. And then that's one conversation. Another conversation is the overarching, like, should we allow these types of monetizations in our games? And I say our as players, like, should we be okay with this, right? So going back to what I said before, I think it's okay to choose not to play this game. It's okay to bash the game online, to say that you really don't want to, you don't want to ever play this game because of these monetization tactics.
Yeah, participate in it, yeah.
Yeah, but then you also have to realize that you made that decision, which is completely fine, and I think that's good, actually. I think it's good. Some people do that. But you also just have to realize that you're making that decision based on the second discussion. Like, the first discussion being your individual potential enjoyment of the game, and the second one being, should we allow this or not? And that's completely fine. Like, that's completely fine. But I don't think you can then argue that the game overall is bad, but it does lead into an interesting conversation about whether or not like how important monetization is, and like whether or not that makes a game bad. Like, I've played a free-to-play MMORPG on PC back in the day, and I still occasionally visit it from time to time on private servers, and it was very pay to win, but it's some of the most fun I've ever had, and I didn't spend money on the game. It was very, very pay to win. Like, it implemented most of these tactics 10 years ago. You know? Yeah. Like, most of the things we're talking about now. And you could spend, on that game, you could, just like in Diablo Immortal, you could spend $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 if you wanted to, right? It was almost endless. Because basically what it was, you could upgrade your items, right? You could make them plus, like +1, +2, +3. And there was a chance of it failing. And in the end, it got incredibly difficult. Like, the chance of succeeding was like 0.01. Something crazy like that. And then you could purchase, for real money, you could purchase something that increased your chances of success. So, of course, people did that. And as you can imagine, there was basically a system where you could spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on just buying those luck enhancers, basically. But my point is, I still enjoyed that game. And I had fun with that game, playing with other people who also did not spend money on that game. That doesn't mean I don't... that doesn't mean I think it's a good monetization strategy for a game. But...
Yeah. So basically, I mean, yeah, in the end, I guess not wrapping it up, but like in the end, two things can be true at once. You know, it could be a fun game with horrible monetization. Yeah. And that's essentially kind of what Diablo Immortal is. It's a fun game.
I think that's a good conclusion.
With horrible monetization. And those of us who would choose to play it because it's fun and ignore the monetization, awesome. Those of us who choose to not play it because it has that, you know, those horrible monetization tactics, completely understand it. But yeah, in the end, I enjoyed playing it. The graphics are high-end, top-tier graphics. The gameplay is very smooth and fluid. I played with multiple classes, multiple characters. I enjoyed my time with it. But yeah, in the end, great game, horrible monetization. I mean, and that leads to a conversation of where these companies, where they want to go. Because I've played horrible games with great monetization. I've played mediocre games with decent monetization. So it's just really a game at this point, or a game within a game, right? When they do these monetization tactics. I mean, we're talking about Activision Blizzard and NetEase, who came together to make this game. So when I say I wasn't surprised at what the monetization was going to be, it's true. I wasn't surprised. I heard those two companies making this game, and I had a feeling things were going to end up this way. And they did. I guess so. I'm just, in the end, I'm glad that they made at least a gameplay wise decent and fun factor fun. I'm glad that part happened. The monetization that came along with it, I kind of expected it to happen. But I guess the question is really like, how could they do anything to improve it? Can they move on from this? Because, I mean, this has really caused them to have horrible PR, right? Like, honestly, people have been bashing the game so much. I'm sure their downloads are high, and I'm sure they've made, I mean, there was an article that came out how much they made within the first week, and it was this astronomical number, and I'm sure they've made huge amounts of number. Do they tone down the monetization going forward? Do they ramp it up? Do they leave it the same? Like, what tactics do you think they're going to go going forward?
My best prediction, or my guess, is that they're not gonna tone it down too much.
No.
But I do think as the game progresses and more content is being released, they might make it a bit easier to get some of this stuff for free if you want to grind it.
I see.
Because I don't think it hurts their revenue that much, because the people who want to spend the money, they don't want to spend the time on grinding it anyway. Like, if you have the money, there's no way you're going to spend the time grinding it, even if you could realistically grind it. Right now, it's unrealistic to grind the best gear in Diablo Immortal.
Yeah.
Like, it is unrealistic to get the very, very best.
Like thousands of hours, if that.
Yeah. I don't think anyone has even made that calculation, because there's no need to even make that calculation, because it's almost impossible. But I think they might. This is what they might do. They might make it easier to get, but then of course they might also release new content that then is very difficult to get.
Yeah.
Right. So we're back to where we came from. But if they're going to do anything, I think that's what they're going to do, because it's not going to hurt their revenue that much. But I also think what could happen is that we could see the same situation as with No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky released on PC, what was it, 2016? Something like that.
Sounds about right.
And it was so hyped, and it did not live up to expectations. Now, it was a completely different story, because that was not so much about the monetization, but more about the gameplay promises that had been made, and then, it didn't live up to that. But it got so much flack, so much bad PR as well, just like with Diablo Immortal. And somehow it came out on the other side of it.
Yeah,
and now I feel like people are praising the game even. I'm not saying that Diablo Immortal will get to that point. I don't think it will, because I think they'll keep pushing the monetization. This was a big production, like Diablo Immortal. They will have to earn a lot of money back from like development time spent on it. And even just time spent on developing that monetization. I mean, that is an entire team on its own that has sat there and thought about that monetization and how to best implement that and how to best optimize that, whether we like it or not. So that's my prediction. I think they might make it easier to get some items, or like, when I say items, I'm really talking about legendary gems. I think that might make it easier to get some of those as free player if you want to grind it. And I think overall the bad PR is gonna fade out, because people move on. We move on to talking about different games, and then I think some people are gonna come back and go give the game a chance a few years later. Some are still not gonna like it, but some are gonna be okay with it and probably have a decent time with it. That's my prediction. But do you agree, by the way? Like, do you have any other predictions? Do you think it's going to work out? Is it going to close down?
I definitely don't see it closing down, because you know how those mobile games that shut down after a few years or whatnot. I think they're going to stick to their guns with Diablo Immortal. They spent so much time on it. It has that name recognition. I definitely see it going on throughout the years. Where they go with the monetization, that's a tough one. Like you said, I'm kind of in your camp, where they might make things a little bit easier. They might make drops, the percentage rate for drops a little bit higher, which I could see them tweaking those things, because it's easy for them to go in and tweak certain things like that. Will that bring players back, or even new players in, or players back that were kind of disinterested? That's kind of unsure. I do see it sticking around for at least, I'm going to go on a limb and say at least for the next 5 years. I definitely see
as well.
Yeah, I see it being very popular. A lot of people's concern was like, oh, this is what they did with Immortal. This is what they're going to do with the next Diablo game because Diablo 4 has already been announced and they have gameplay footage of it. And Blizzard came out and said that's not the case, that, Diablo Immortal is its own thing. It has its own monetization, and that Diablo 4 won't have anything similar to that. I think Diablo 4, they said maybe cosmetics, but they won't have any gems or upgrade material or loot, which makes complete sense. And I kind of figured that as well. So I think the community, especially the Diablo community who was fearful about Diablo 4 being this crazy thing, I think it's okay for you guys to kind of like maybe be like, you know what, this is its own thing. It's not my thing as a Diablo fan. Diablo 4 is what I'm highly anticipating and just waiting for that one to come out. But yeah, Diablo Immortal is going to be around for the next 5 years. Will it get better? We'll have to see. I'm sure this will be a topic of discussion in future podcasts, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. I'll keep it installed on my device so I can check in every once in a while to see how things are going. But yeah, other than that, that's Diablo Immortal.
Okay, so exactly. I think that was Diablo Immortal. We did it. We talked about it.
Finally, after all these years.
Finally, after all these years, we talked about it. I think let that be the conclusion for now, because we have another big topic we want to get to, which is Netflix games, which is another thing we've talked about in the past. Another, I want to say, hot topic right now. People
and not the store hot topic.
No.
Oh, I don't know if you know that. Do you know about that Hot Topic?
No, I don't.
No? Oh, it's like a store here in the States, and they sell like, goth and like emo attire.
Oh.
And yeah, it's called Hot Topic. Yeah.
Definitely not that.
I used to shop there. But anyway, go ahead.
You used to shop there?
Oh, yeah. When I was an angsty teen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We need to see pictures now.
One of these days, you'll see my angsty teen pictures.
Yes, please. Okay, so Netflix games. Last podcast episode, these games had not started releasing yet. So it had been announced that Netflix were going to get into mobile games. They were going to release mobile games, but we didn't know anything about how they were going to release them, how they were going to be monetized, if they were going to be monetized, if they were going to be only available for subscribers, or if subscribers just had, no ads and no in-app purchases, and then they were also available for non-subscribers. We have all the answers now. So if you haven't tried any of these Netflix games yet, there are a total of 23 games right now. This is a quick rundown for you guys. 23 games right now, all of which are without advertisements and without in-app purchases. So that's a big thing, right from the start. Mm-hmm. As long as you have a Netflix subscription, of course. And you can only play them if you have a Netflix subscription. They're aiming to have a total of 50 games on the platform before the end of the year already. So they're basically more than doubling the amount of games from 23 to 50 games within the next 6 months, which is pretty crazy in its own right. Moonlighter recently released. A version of Exploding Kittens also released recently. And you might say, hey, wasn't Moonlighter or wasn't Exploding Kittens already available on mobile? And yes, it was. But now there's just a version that, if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can play it for free instead, right? You don't have to pay for it. And the strategy game Townsmen also released. And just very recently, it was announced that the very popular turn-based strategy game Into the Breach, which is made by the same developers of Faster Than Light, by the way. If you play PC games, you might have heard about that one. Is also coming to mobile exclusively as a Netflix game. So this was just a quick primer of what is Netflix games now, where they're going to take it in the future. They've also, when I say they, I mean Netflix, they've also been buying up game studios, and they're working with indie developers and medium-sized game development studios on releasing essentially premium games that are only available to subscribers. So now at least we know what it is. Do you have Netflix, by the way? Have you tried any of these games yet?
So I do have a Netflix subscription, and I've been waiting to try all the games or anything on Netflix because I've been wanting to see what they have available. So I just downloaded the thing to have the games. I haven't played any of the games yet, but I will say, as time goes on, I am more and more interested in what's going on here because if I'm being honest, it's kind of nice for those who already have Netflix subscriptions. It's a no-brainer. You're already paying for Netflix, so you might as well get some of these games, have no in-app purchases. There's some premium games in here. To me, it's okay, I'm liking what's happening here. Now, the biggest thing, I think their biggest thing to overcome is, all right, they need new people, right? People who don't have, I know this is crazy to say, but there are people who don't have Netflix, which is fine because some people prefer to have Hulu or Paramount Plus or all these other streaming services because there's a million right now. I feel like there's more streaming services than than anything else.
Yeah,
so
way too many.
Yeah, way too many. So getting those people, those extra people in, and I have a feeling that's why they went this route. Netflix probably came together and was like, all right, what's a huge market? What's the biggest market share right now? And it's mobile gaming, of course. I mean, it's huge at this point. So they're like, this is how we're going to get into the mobile gaming market and get more subscriptions. So I feel like it's a no-brainer. I personally need to try some of these games. I'm very excited to try Moonlighter, honestly, because I never had a chance to play that game. So since I already have a subscription, this is a great opportunity to play it.
Yeah, and I also just want to add that I also like if we're talking about the pros first, like the advantages of this, I also like the fact that they're bringing games back, like games that were removed from the app stores, like Asphalt Extreme has re-released as a Netflix game. I do believe Into the Dead was also removed. I might be wrong on this one, but I do believe it was removed, like not being updated anymore, and then it got re-released now as a Netflix game, Into the Dead 2, which is like this zombie apocalypse action shooter, right?
First person shooter or whatnot.
So that's one thing I really like about this is that they're re-releasing these games, giving them a new life, basically. These games that the studios that developed them didn't have the resources to continue maintaining them, but now because of Netflix games, they will be maintained, and we can continue playing them. So that's good, right? The obvious downside, I guess, is that it's a subscription. So if you don't already have Netflix and you want to play some of these games, you have to get a Netflix subscription. I mean, obviously, right? But that leads into this conversation of, are subscriptions good or bad? Like, are game subscriptions ultimately good or bad for the ecosystem as a whole and for gamers as a whole? I'll start out by saying that I've not subscribed to any mobile-specific subscriptions yet. So I don't have Apple Arcade. I don't have the Google Play Pass.
The Google, Play Pass. That's what it's called.
I also don't have. There's a couple of other ones like made by standalone studios. Forgot their name right now. Let me see if I can pull them up here. Mobile game subscription. What are they called? There's a couple of other ones, and I haven't paid for any of those yet. Unleashed is one of them. They're trying to do something there, and there's another one that also tried to bring back some old games that had gone extinct basically. I like that type of effort. I just haven't felt the need to pay for them, basically. Because the subscriptions, like, it's every single month. I mean, obviously, but this is what keeps people back from doing it, right? You have to pay every single month to get these games, whereas you could just buy the individual game if you wanted to play that game, and then you would have it forever.
And then, like, what happens when the subscription is gone? Let's say Netflix drops this whole, Netflix games idea a few years from now. You paid all this money, but then you don't have access to those games anymore.
You're basically betting on whether or not Netflix really takes this seriously. Because if they do really, and so far everything points to the fact that they are taking it seriously. Like releasing 50 games, buying up game studios, even for a big company like Netflix, this is not something you just do because you want to. Like, they have shareholders, and they have to be able to explain to those shareholders why they're prioritizing spending millions of dollars buying up game studios, when they could be focusing on creating more, TV shows, like series and films and like movies. So this is why I think they are actually taking it very seriously. And if they're taking it very seriously and they see some sort of success in this realm, like people downloading the games, people actually, like them actually retaining users, like making sure that people don't unsubscribe because that they have these games, or even, as you said, new people signing up just to play these games or primarily to play these games. Maybe that's the thing that gets them over the edge, right? Like, they've been considering getting Netflix. Now there are these games on there as well. Why not? Like, it's a differentiating factor from all the other streaming services out there. If they succeed, I don't think they're going to go back on it. I think they're going to keep releasing more games, 50 games this year. Maybe they're going to do another 20 next year, right? So in that case, I actually think it could be okay, pretty good. I mean, why not? Like, why hate on it just because it's Netflix? I think it's, like, other game subscriptions have worked out in the past. You have the Xbox Game Pass, which allows you to play a lot of games on PC
and very
Xbox.
Successful. The Xbox Game
and
Pass
they're very
is
successful.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you would expect that people would hate on that type of thing because they're basically targeting the type of gamer who would typically say, we're talking PC gamers now, the type of gamer who typically say, I want to own my own games. Like, I want to have my own games. Preferably, I want to have physical copies. At least a few years ago, they wanted to have physical copies, like DVDs, Blu-rays, of these games, because that was even better. Then they knew they could always continue playing that game because the game literally played from that disc, right? Instead of being something you had to download and maybe the server that old school style. They're targeting these types of players with Xbox Game Pass, and they're successful at it. Like, people are generally overall happy with Game Pass. And so that made me think maybe Netflix, why not Netflix? Like, why shouldn't Netflix be able to succeed as well and create a good service around this? They definitely have the right strategy, I think. Like, if you look at the games they've released, I mentioned Exploding Kittens, right? We're not talking small indie games. Not that there's anything wrong with small indie games, but we're talking some decently sized games here. Hextech Mayhem, which is, I think, based on League of Legends, right? The League of Legends franchise, if I recall correctly. We talked about Moonlighter, Asphalt Extreme. There's also Arcanium, which is pretty interesting. So you guys can look up some of these games if you're interested. I've also heard good things about Shatter. I think it's just called Shatter Remastered, which I do believe is a bullet hell shooter. I haven't played it yet, but I mean, these are genres that people like. These are games that people like, and they can now play them on Netflix. Have you ever subscribed to any of these game subscription services?
So no, I have not, and I feel like this is probably going to be Netflix's biggest hurdle, let's say. So that they're targeting the type of people that are interested in subscribing to game services, let's say. So if somebody already has Apple Arcade or Google Play Pass, those individuals already subscribing to a service. So Netflix is going to have to somehow convince those individuals to subscribe to Netflix for Netflix games if they don't already have a subscription. Now, if they already do, because here's the thing, like I was talking about earlier, if you already have a Netflix subscription, yes, Netflix is interested in you playing the games on there so they can have concurrent players and player counts. But honestly, they're probably more interested in the converting of people, right, from other game services to here. So they're going to be targeting Apple Arcade, Google Play Pass individuals. So I think, and that really feeds into why they want 50 games by the end of the year and why they want to get these high big name profiles, because in the end, what they want it to be is like, I'm on Apple Arcade, but Netflix games has better games on Netflix Arcade. I'm going to cancel my Apple Arcade subscription and go subscribe to Netflix. I mean, that's the target that I want to say they're looking for. New subscriptions, get people involved and all that stuff. So to me, that's a very hard competitive, I want to say it's a competitive situation, because not only do you have the niche of people who are subscribing to these mobile game subscription services, but you also have the niche of people who don't have a Netflix account and aren't subscribers. So it's a big hurdle for them to take on. And like you said, I think it does feed into how seriously they're taking it, because you wouldn't go into this market if you weren't taking it seriously, because off top, it's going to be a difficult market. It's a niche market, right? It's very difficult. Like, you have to convince people. So let's say I didn't have a Netflix account, because I already do. Let's say I was, hypothetically speaking, part of the people who just don't have no subscription services. What would convince me to get a Netflix subscription for these games? And it would have to be premium games. It would have to be games that are normally $7.99 or $9.99 on the Play Store that I just don't have the means of, I don't want to get that. But then let's say Netflix subscription has 10 of those premium games. So let's say that's, I don't know, $100 worth of premium games. And then I paid this low amount a month, $9.99 or whatever it may be, to play all those games. That would kind of convince me. Very similar to how Xbox Game Pass convinces a lot of people. These are $60 games that you could play for however, $50 or $14.99 a month, let's say, but you're playing all these premium games. I saved so much money. It's really about convincing these gamers, this niche market, this is how you're going to save money. And if they can do that, if they can get a bunch of premium games on there, I do see it being successful. So would I be converted, let's say, if I didn't already have a Netflix account? I'm about 50-50. I probably might be converted. If I can play a bunch of premium games and I can watch Netflix shows, then yeah.
Yeah, maybe sometime in the future as well. Like, right now they have 23 games. They're going to have 50 by the end of the year. That's what they're aiming for, at least. So we do get to a point probably where I think more and more people will be convinced to get Netflix just for these games. We're not there yet. I think we're absolutely not there yet.
We're early on,
we might not even be there with 50 games, like when they get to 50, because it's not about the number of games, it's about the quality of the games as well. So both have to go hand in hand, and so far it's looking good. If they can continue that pace and they release, like, say 25 or even 50 games next year as well, I think we're starting to quickly get to the point where people look at that and they look at the fact that they can also watch all the other Netflix content, and they might be convinced to then get it. But one thing I also like that they're doing for at least a couple of their games is they're not just premium games, and I think this is, I didn't think about this before, but some of them are also games that were free to play and had, for example, Asphalt Extreme was free to play and it had some basically pay to win monetization, but they removed that.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting because most other subscription services focus on premium games that you now just pay a subscription to play, as you just said, instead of paying for each individual game. Instead of paying $60 per game, you pay $10 per month. But there are many people out there who don't want to play these free-to-play games that have pay-to-win monetization. And so if Netflix could take the best of those games, like the games with the best gameplay, and then remove the in-app purchases and remove the pay-to-win, remove the ads, then there's a new group of people, like there's a new audience there of people who would never play those games because of the monetization, but they would play it because of the gameplay, and now they can get them through Netflix. I think some people, it might be a niche group, but I think there's an audience there of people who would actually be interested in that.
Yeah, and I never even thought of that side of things. Yeah, turning a free-to-play, pay-to-win experience into a more, easier experience that just focuses on gameplay and skill.
Yeah. And they did it with us, Asphalt Extreme. I don't think it's their main primary focus. The focus seems to be on developing new games, like new IPs that are premium games, developing games based on the most popular TV shows, and then converting premium games, like basically that maybe don't exist anymore, or just paying to make them exclusive for Netflix. I think that seems to be their main strategy, but it would be interesting if they go more into imagine this would never happen, but just imagine Diablo Immortal as a premium game, right? Of course, that would never happen. That's too extreme.
But that's
you
the
get
idea.
The point.
Yeah,
that's the idea of like taking a free-to-play game and turning it into a premium game through Netflix, which I think is pretty interesting. By the way, the other subscription service that I was trying to remember before was called Game Club. Just to give a quick shout out, I guess, to those. I haven't tried Game Club, but I do like the effort they're putting into like trying to make a good subscription service for mobile games. I think it's partly run by the former editor of Touch Arcade as well.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day, Touch Arcade was kind of a big deal. Like they were the first ones I remember, at least, to cover mobile games, specifically focusing on iOS games, because to begin with, it was mostly all about iOS games to begin with, before Android really started taking off. Just kind of an interesting fact. That doesn't mean that the service is necessarily amazing just because it's run by someone who was the editor of Touch Arcade, but it does mean that it's like these people are genuinely like interested in the mobile gaming space and want what's best for like their mobile gamers, and they diehard mobile gamers, right? Anyway, quick shout out to those guys. I know you have, let me just say one thing. I know you have a topic more you want to bring up, and I think I might just leave now and you can take this one because I don't even want to talk about it.
This one is interesting, and it worked out perfectly because we just got done talking about subscription services and game subscription services and how popular they are, how successful they may or may not be, which kind of leads into Stadia. Everyone, Stadia is all but dead. Not officially dead, but I mean, if you really want to look into it, Stadia is having huge issues right now. And this is a subscription service that we talked about months ago or on previous podcasts of how, where it would go, what it would do, its benefits, its plus, its minuses, and all this crazy stuff. Google spent a lot of money on Stadia. I mean, they had developers, they had they had exclusive games coming out for it and all this other stuff. And within a not so surprising turn of events, that doesn't really exist anymore. I think one of the exclusive games that was supposed to come out for it is no longer exclusive. I think it just came out recently. I can't think of the game, but it came out on other platforms and didn't even release on Stadia. And there's huge rumors, or not even rumors, about basically Google selling the cloud service that Stadia uses to other developers or other teams to use it as a cloud service and not even calling it Stadia. All kinds of craziness going on. I went on the Stadia website because I'm like, all right, is Stadia actually gone? Does it still exist? Stadia still exists, everybody. You can still subscribe to it. You can still use it just how it was used when it first launched. But nothing new is coming out on Stadia. There's no,
No.
there's no new IPs. There's no, exclusive games. It's basically just there to house what's already on there. And I think they might have a few other releases of games that are already out coming out on it. But other than that, it's on its way to the grave.
It's a sad, sad day.
It's a sad story.
I was really hoping to be able to play Diablo 4, for example, on Stadia. Something like that. Like playing it, when I say playing on Stadia, I mean playing it on my smartphone through Stadia, because the game would be streamed instead, Google Stadia. There's nothing more to say about it. I was so hyped about it. Those of you guys who've listened to the previous podcast episodes will know this. Like we've spent extended amount of time talking about Google Stadia, and especially I have been especially hyped for it, and now it's dead. All but dead. But
I know
so
you
At
guys
least,
remember Nimble Thor, he was advertising for Stadia, he was super excited.
Unpaid, yeah. But now, they should have paid me more, I guess. But or paid me in the first place. But it's dead. And listen, actually, with all that said, all kidding aside, I'm actually okay with it. Like, I think it just turned out that Xbox Game Pass was way better.
Yeah.
And that is coming to mobile in the same vein, like with
value for your money.
They call it something else, right? Like where they stream the games, because Xbox Game Pass is just the subscription, like where you just get the games. But then there's their Microsoft streaming xCloud. Is that what they call it?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're on the right track there. Yeah.
So I think over the next couple of years, they are gonna become. I mean, they already pretty much are, but they're gonna become what Google Stadia wanted to be. And I think they're going to win out. They have a strong lead in that market. And so there is still a chance that I will be able to. And Microsoft is aggressive, like buying up Bethesda, right? Like, so I think we might be able to, play many of these PC quality games, or not just PC quality, but straight up PC and console games on our phones in the future through a subscription, But, and that would be great. Like, I might be interested in paying for that. That's what I hope Stadia would be. But it turned out not to be that, and instead it's going to be another failed Google project.
Unfortunately. Yeah, let's get the violins out. Let's get the bagpipes. Let's get the everything that you would get out for a funeral, and lay it to rest. And Amazing Grace, and let's just lay it to rest, and all
Goodbye,
that fun
Stadia.
Goodbye, Stadia. This podcast is actually a service for Stadia to go bye-bye. I mean, with Stadia, there was some high hopes, some high dreams. I get the thought process behind it, and I'm not saying it was a bad idea, because obviously, like you said, there's other companies that are going to be doing the same thing, if not better, of course, but it just didn't take off the ground. It didn't grab that audience that it wanted to, it didn't get enough people excited for it. And I was one of them. I wasn't so excited for it. I mean, Yes, I'm a mobile gamer, but I'm also a PC gamer, and I'm from that camp, like you said, of those people that's like, I want to own my game, I want to purchase it and download it onto my hard drive, and it's mine forever, even though that isn't really the case anymore, because there's DRM and online services, and if you're not hooked up to the internet, you can't really play your game off of Steam, and all this other stuff that goes along with that. So that argument isn't as true as it used to be, as owning that physical content or that physical disc, which it has its unfortunate caveats, and that's in a whole nother conversation about physical media versus digital that we can or cannot have. But in the end, Stadia just didn't portray its argument good enough. It didn't have enough exclusive content, and that's really what it came down to. I mean, you had to fully purchase the game for $60, let's say, to have it on Stadia to stream it. I think that was its first issue. It should have just did a subscription service, which I looked on the website now, and I think they've transitioned to a subscription service now.
They had a subscription. Yeah, they had a subscription, but I think you could just also pay.
Purchase it. Yeah, something like that.
That's how I recall it, at least. But
yeah, I was a little confused.
It's been too long now. I don't even recall anymore. But I do think you could buy. Like, you would have discounts on some games, and other games would be part of the subscription if you paid for the subscription. And you could also just play for free. Like, free meaning you only bought the games and then you play, like, you didn't pay for Stadia straight up, but then you wouldn't be able to play in high resolution, and, there were other games.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of also feeds into it as well. I mean, that's kind of confusing, right? Like, oh, do I pay for a subscription? Do I not? Do I purchase the game? What do I do? I mean, if they would have just did subscription only, let's say, and had it set up like a Game Pass,
right.
if they had it set up like a Game Pass, they might have had better opportunities or more success. But in the end, RIP Stadia. Da, 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 da. Wait, no, that's not the right song. I don't know the song. Why'd you ask me to do that? No.
I didn't ask him.
I didn't ask him. That's right. Oh, you did not. I put that on myself. Dang it.
Yep.
So, folks, that's it for now. So we're just going to wrap it up right here. But let us know what you think about the topics covered today in the comment section. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if you're already bored and don't know what to do, you can always check out our channels on YouTube by searching for Nimble Thor or Tiny Little Games. Also, we're over on Discord as well. Links for the servers in the description of this episode. And that's all for now. So until next time, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.